You want me to put that on my Tudor?
This One's Wife. What really goes on in Montecito? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This One's Wife and Harry purchased property in Montecito. I regularly remark about its 37,000 flushing toilets, given the number of preposterous bathrooms that it has vis-a-vis the number of bedrooms it has. I think 9 bedrooms, 16 bathrooms. No idea why. Anyway, there are those that suggest that they don't actually live there, that they live elsewhere, or that they no longer live together, that Harry has his bolt holes and this One's Wife is closer to Los Angeles. Either way, the party line that's trotted out is that they do live at Montecito. And a piece in the Telegraph by Hannah Finesse attempts to tell us what goes on in Montecito in terms of away from the spotlight. Now, quite how she knows this, well, you'll find out. But it's not like she's tracked them down and has spent time staying at the mansion for 2 weeks to see what goes on there. And of course, even if she did, what she would witness would be performative, because it would be part of the facade management that this One's Wife would engage in. It focuses primarily on what Prince Harry does, although there is mention of this One's Wife. And it is interesting to learn what's stated here with regard to its context within the narcissistic dynamic, and moreover, what the purpose of this article actually serves. It states, by starting off with the fact that he's coming up to 40, and what happened when he was 30, and that he was weighing his options as he left the army, and that he was hoping he'd find someone to have children with and a job with wage and normal people as colleagues, etc. And he mentioned about being at a crossroads. Well, here we are a decade on. As the sun rises over his Californian home on September the 15th, Harry could be forgiven for congratulating himself on achieving part of what he set out to do. He has one of the most famous marriages in the world, true, with 2 small children he dotes on. That's up for debate. Gone is the royal duty, the engagement shaking hands with volunteers on a wet Wednesday back in Britain, but gone too are the palaces, the honorary military titles, many of the old friends who would drag him down the pub or reminisce over their school days and army escapades. Instead, there is Montecito. Walks on the beach, bike rides, school runs, and jellyfish kites flown on the lawn. So that's the suggestion of some of the things that Harry gets up to, painting this idea of it being an idyll. Flanked by security on the rare occasions he is seen in public, Prince Harry is in demand but under the radar. He works out, occasionally goes out for dinner, hosts new friends at his 9-bedroom home, complete with 16 bathrooms and a swimming pool. Prince Archie is now 5 and at a local school, while 3-year-old Princess Lilibet, according to her mother, has found her voice. There is much, in short, to enjoy. But if a 40th birthday is a chance to sit back and evaluate life, Harry has more than most to think about. The crossroads he once felt himself at is long behind him, in the rear-view mirror as he has sped along his path to financial freedom in America, throwing out royal grievances like grenades as he went. He is seemingly at war on multiple fronts, with the tabloid press over his British security arrangements and via television screens and memoir pages with members of his own family. The public now knows more about him than they ever dreamed, thanks to Spare, including a memorable account of frostbite around the time of Prince William's wedding, which left him wondering, in his own words, what was the universe out to prove by taking my penis at the same moment it took my brother? Time, as the doctor predicted, would fix my todger, he wrote. When would it work its magic on my heart? These days, the king, weary of conversations about security and having cancer treatment, doesn't always answer his calls, it's been reported, while Prince William remains stung by the public accusation the Sussexes have made about his wife, who also had cancer. If Harry's recent visit to the UK for the funeral of his uncle Lord Fellows has moved the dial on his brother's total estrangement, it has not yet come to light. One eyewitness reported that the pair did not appear to talk to each other at all at the service, as per parts passim. A 40th birthday party on some scale will happen in California, Harry's wife and children at the centre of it. And the future for the first time in his life is Harry's alone to decide. No longer under the eye of his hated palace officials, his path is his own choosing. Prince Harry's new circle is small but amazing, insists an ally, and Harry is doing great. Others quoted in different Sunday newspapers claim he's an angry boy feeling more and more isolated in California. Never has one man been described so differently depending on who you speak to and what you read. Prince Harry was last seen in action in Colombia on a 4-day DIY tour with his wife, in which he was seen trying out his Spanish and salsa dancing. The trip cost the country almost £45,000, with the Sussexes using their semi-public events to espouse women's empowerment, mental health in schools and digital wellness. Not entirely unlike his royal tours of old in content, it was low on official handshakes and diplomacy but high on hugs, and scrapped the advice of the Foreign Office in favour of being personally hosted by the country's vice president. It caused bemusement in some quarters back in Britain, while the recurring theme of why. The Sussex's new style of overseas tours is embarrassing, says a long-time royal observer, but the sole reporter who covered the Colombia trip for Harper's Bazaar was won over, saying their warmth and compassion showed the intentionality they bring to the way they use their platform. See parts pass him. As for the rumours that Harry is now estranged from all of his old friends, supporters are quick to disagree. Of course he keeps in touch with his former circle, says one staunch Sussex ally, but it doesn't mean he wants to come back. Some old friends back in London still talk with him via an occasional FaceTime or WhatsApp, albeit that they find some of Harry's new world baffling. His day-to-day life does indeed seem enviable. There is meditation, a 30-40 minute session each day, scheduled in to make sure it happens, and exercise, formerly at Barry's boot camp in LA, more recently with personal trainers. It's a hard life, isn't it? Meditating, exercising. He chats with his staff. That's tough work. Enjoys the garden, marvels at the local birds, does the school run and walks the dogs. What a hellish existence. He and the Duchess have been seen occasionally at local steakhouse Lucky's and upmarket Italian restaurant Tre Lune. The friends they are seen with are high-powered millionaires, billionaires, business leaders, successful entrepreneurs, producers, which of course is all as a consequence of this one's wife's narcissism, driving her to want to be around those people, as I've explained in previous videos. Harry has video calls with his team and some of his old charities, sometimes wearing sheepskin slippers under his desk as he works in a shared office with his wife. Normally, when you see him around here, he's walking his Labrador on the beach or on his bicycle, followed by his security in a Range Rover, says a neighbour. They keep themselves to themselves. I haven't seen Harry around much. No mention of the kids. The Duchess is spotted slightly more regularly at the farmer's market or out to lunch with friends, and she is said to have joined a Mahong group, a traditional Chinese board game getting a new lease of life with Generation Z and described by its players as the new book group. It's paradise living here, says Richard Minards, a well-connected society columnist for the Montecito Journal, who lives, he jokes, a tiara's tossed from them in the exclusive area of Riven Rock. They live rather splendidly. It couldn't be a nicer place. It's a very wealthy community. We have a lot of people giving a lot of money to our cultural organisations as well as charities, but we don't see them. The couple are conspicuous, he added, for their security, particularly after first moving there during the pandemic. Once again, nobody's that interested in them, but this one's wife wants the security because her paranoia drives her to require it, and it makes her seen, which of course prompts a reaction. So she triangulates people with that security. The Prince's friends told a US tabloid magazine recently he has a tight group of friends for understandable reasons. There are some signs, subtly, of American celebrification too. Harry's accent has shifted to swap T's for D's. So I guess, is he saying wada rather than water? And details of his designer outfits have started to appear in news reports alongside those of his wife's wardrobe. His status as an ex-royal is convoluted. He is still a prince, the son of a king and brother of a future king. Archie's nursery he showed us via Netflix as a formal photograph of his late grandma Diana wearing a tiara on its wall. It then talks more about the tour in Colombia, which we don't need to go over, and talks about the fact that he's planning to go to New York. He talks a little bit about the Netflix deal still being there, and talk about Archwell Productions, that it would be on a level with the Obama's production company Higher Ground, or Shondaland, the mind-boggling successful TV juggernaut founded by producer Shonda Rhimes that is home to Grey's Anatomy, Bridgerton and Scandal. Talks about parting ways with Spotify, talks about Spare coming out in paperback, talks about people remaining fond of him, talks about the royal family having to deal with its own battles. And that's the lot. So it doesn't really provide you with a huge amount of insight into what's actually going on in his life privately, although it purports to do so, suggesting under the headline, How Prince Harry Fills His Days Away from the Spotlight. But what it does portray is much of that life that he enjoys, apparently, meditation, doing exercise, walking the dog, cycling around, well, you could do that anywhere. You don't need to be in California. Okay, you've got the sun on your shoulders a lot of the time, but beyond that, you could be doing that anywhere. And it doesn't sound like he's got lots of friends. And remember, this article completely fails to take into account that he's married to a narcissist and the impact that all has, and completely misses, of course, what truly goes on behind closed doors with regard to the devaluing behaviour that he experiences, which we know he experiences because he's in a dynamic with a narcissist. So it's a relatively thin piece, even though it's quite long. And I've obviously sped through sections of it so as not to bore you. What's its purpose? Well, the purpose, again, is it's another attempt, this time through the Telegraph, to tell us that Harry really loves life in California and everything's wonderful. It's facade management. It's essentially a PR piece that's been put out again by the Sussexes to say, Harry has this really relaxed life, all's well, they live in a wonderful part of the world, so all this suggestion that he's clamouring for a return to the United Kingdom is false. So it's clear that publicity pieces have been issued to try and quell the suggestion that Harry wants to go, which is this one's wife asserting control over Harry and over the global audience, and it's also part of facade management. What is entertaining are the comments in reaction to this piece. Here are some of them. Emmeline Lucas writes, I have my own theories about how he spends his days. He'll go blind if he's not careful. Chris Overill, I don't think you should reveal his loathsome personal habits. Anyway, he'll probably go blind. Helmut Pith, Mr. Hewitt spending the day recataloguing his mistakes before having a jam sandwich for tea. Pete Borrett, why does the Daily Telegraph think anyone is interested? Yvonne Osprey, a pity then he's defined himself as an untrustworthy traitor determined to undermine his family and country whilst profiting off the back of them. His poor me stance simply irritates and cuts no ice. Had he got some kind of job, game warden in Africa, for example, he would have kept our respect. Michael Wilson, I didn't know he had days away from the spotlight. Colin McKay, diddums, you made your bed, now lie in it. My goodness, did anyone ever hear of previous spares complaining? Keith Barnes, who gives a fuck? Mark Moo, past sell-by date. Colin Galvin, surprised he finds time for his job at Better Up. Hugo McEwen, ooh, can I play too? He feeds the chickens, he brushes Duchess this one's wife's hair, he watches daytime television wondering why he wasn't invited on as a guest, he finds new ways of nursing old grievances, he polishes his shoes until he can see this one's wife's face in them when he's bowing to her, he talks to very expensive lawyers about what new frivolous court case he can launch against British newspapers, he wonders what the hell happened to his life. Ian Cann, short news day. David Jones, we never want to see either of them again. He betrayed the Queen and made her suffer unnecessary in her final years. Traitors. Tim Wakefield, Princess Anne is patron or president of over 300 organisations. Harry needs to up his game just a bit. Sheer Hulk, a wasteful life. Freeze Peach, instructing lawyers on vexatious schemes must account for a fair few hours of this bloke's day. And on it goes. Hundreds of comments criticising, detailing what a pointless article it is, talking about his fuck-wittedness, not really caring about what they have to state, and as a consequence, the fact is that the vast majority of comments are all critical, which shows that these repeated attempts to try and suggest to us that he can be likeable, that she can be likeable, that they're enjoying an idyll, doesn't really wash. And the fact is, this doesn't really tell you what goes on in Monty's shit show at all. You're more likely to get a much better idea from what I tell you about the way that a narcissist treats her intimate partner primary source to understand what goes on behind closed doors. This is just another PR puff piece attempting to tell us that life is wonderful in Montecito, and, as the comments dictate, nobody's buying it. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.